Welcome to the Fowl Front Podcast, a part of the Waypoint Outdoor Collective. I'm your host, Ben Page, and this is your source for hunting, outdoors, and conservation conversations. In an eclectic and sometimes unorganized fashion, I appreciate you coming by. So today on the show, I've got my good friend Scotty. Scotty, actually, can I even still call you Scotty? That's kind of like a childhood name, right?
I don't care.
You don't care? All right, good. So Scotty, whatever we want to call him, probably the biggest jerk I know. We're going to be talking about some of the things to consider when you're calling the shots out on some waterfowl coming in, and kind of building your decision-making paradigm for when to, call take 'em, and some of the questions that new guys might be considering when preparing for a hunt. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Sorry for calling you a jerk in the intro.
I don't think you are, but that's okay. We'll move past it.
Good. Oh man. So me and Scotty grew up in Nebraska together, and you're a relatively new hunter, right, Scott?
That is correct. Definitely so for waterfowl, but hunting in general, even that, yeah.
Yeah. What was your first taste in waterfowl?
First taste in waterfowl. I mean, I have eaten both duck and goose, but I was in. Well, that'll become important later on as I get more into my experiences. But I was invited on a duck hunt. Was the first time I went on a waterfowl hunt, and it was a great experience because I've learned to absolutely love the sport of waterfowl hunting, and all of the elements I enjoyed of it. But it was a totally unsuccessful hunt, and the guy that invited me, so I wasn't good friends with him to begin with. It's like I know him through the guys that I am friends with, and his organization was not the best, and it was just kind of very sloppily put together and relatively unsuccessful. But again, all the elements of waterfowl hunting that were there, being on the water and the early morning, being around good guys, all those elements were great. So I did enjoy that aspect of it.
When was that hunt?
That was 3 years ago.
3 years ago. What do you mean he was like super unorganized? What do you mean by that?
We went to this place. It was on a fairly large reservoir in Nebraska, pretty close to me, one that I really like going to. And we were there, we camped out in campers the night before. That was really nice. So we had a fire. We all got there about 8 o'clock. There were generators on the camper. So even though it was mid-October and it was a pretty cold October, we were nice and warm in these campers. So you would think with all these, like we camped out there the night before. We didn't have to get up super early. We still got up at, I don't know, probably 5. Sunset or shooting light was going to be like 6 a.m. And we didn't leave the boat ramp until like 6 o'clock. And I had been up, a while, ready to go. This was not my thing. I wasn't in charge of anything. So I was not real thrilled with the amount of time it took to get set up and going. By these people that were supposedly the experienced duck hunters that were showing me the way on this duck hunting experience.
Now, what other hunting had you done before that?
I started out as a deer hunter. I didn't have a very traditional sort of entry into hunting. It wasn't anything I did as a youngster with my family or anything. My grandpa was a hunter, but he passed away when I was like 12 before he ever took me to do anything. My uncle was a hunter, but I didn't see him a lot. He was in Omaha, and plus he has kind of been out of the game, so to speak, pretty consistently since he was a younger guy. I talk with him quite a bit about things just because he has a lot of experience, but he really only goes once every 3 or 4 years now at this point. So he wasn't, going to be taking me along to anything. And so I just didn't really have that family upbringing of hunting. I always was interested in it because, where I grew up, so many kids that we knew growing up were hunters, and I always thought it was pretty cool. But a friend of mine in college, he was talking to me about hunting. I had said I was interested, and he was nice enough to take me along to his family ranch for a deer hunt. And I've been lucky enough that he's taken me every year since. So that was my first kind of taste of hunting, was deer hunting with him.
I remember you sending me the text messages of, I think, your first buck Huge buck, right?
Oh yeah, huge 2x2, probably about 90 pounds. I mean, massive.
Yeah, pretty big Nebraska deer.
Yeah, no, it was a little buck. It was so fun. I mean, you've been deer hunting, you know what it's like, and especially when it's your first hunt of anything. I learned then that it doesn't matter what age you are, whether you're 20 years old or 12 years old, you're still going to be really amped about it.
What's interesting about us growing up, so, I had a lot of exposure to like upland waterfowl hunting with my dad and stuff when we were younger, but really when you and me kind of met and, junior high, I think.
Yep.
And then high school, I mean, hunting for me at least was like non-existent during that time frame. I did a little bit of deer hunting out with Bubba and out at their place. But it wasn't until I got to college that I really like started picking hunting back up and really getting into it. And it's kind of funny that, you're right. We grew up around all these guys that were out there with their dads and their brothers and their cousins. And we never got the bug until, I guess you'd call it like late onset waterfowl hunter. I mean, you're pretty taken with it now. Right?
With waterfowl, I love deer hunting. It's a big passion of mine because I get the opportunity to go do it. And being somebody that doesn't have access to like my own spot to go deer hunt, deer hunting where if you're only going on public land, it's one, going to be pretty dangerous in the state of Nebraska, and two, probably not going to be real successful. Now, if you're bow hunting, that's a different story. I know guys that are able to go out and do that. And have success in public land. But rifle hunting, which is the only thing I do currently, pretty different story. So with waterfowl, what kind of infected me when I first went and did it is there's so much access here in Nebraska. And the other thing with waterfowl living in the city, I live in a town of 55,000 people. There's not deer running across the street. I mean, it happens actually, but not very often. But you're always seeing ducks and geese in, water retention cells and just anything that's holding water. There's pretty much ducks and geese there year round. So I'm always seeing these things and I'm always hearing them. And so knowing that waterfowling is something that I can do on public land and I'm surrounded by the wildlife anyway, it never really leaves my brain now that I've started wanting to do it.
Yeah. It's funny how, last time I was in town, I was amazed by all the waterfowl just hanging out, next to freaking Denny's and Carlos
Wendy's.
O'Kelly's. Yeah, Wendy's.
Yeah, there's a little ditch by Wendy's, and it's always full of geese or ducks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay. So why the heck are we talking about calling shots today?
So like I said earlier, what you laughed at it, but I said I have eaten duck and geese. I've only ever shot a goose. I've been totally unsuccessful in the, I think, 4 times that I've been duck hunting. And so what I love, why I wanted to talk about this is because I watch duck hunting and goose hunting videos all the time. And to me, as someone that's spent time in the blind, not a ton, but some, and definitely wanting to be doing more, but not having that moment of, there they are, I know what it is, I know I'm going to take a shot at it. I've never had that experience, but when I watch these videos, it is so second nature to guys like you that have a lot of experience in the blind and have had this time to, they've got the experience of knowing when it's time to put the call down, when it's time to bring the gun up, say take them, and then take the shot. It's just effortless. It's second nature to you guys. And it's not to me.
Yeah, now if anybody's doubting Scotty's commitment to the game, Scotty he's bought a boat, he's bought decoys, he's into this over the course of the last 4 years. And I think that's a really something, no one teaches you that, right? No one teaches you when to call the shot. You just kind of, if you're out there learning by yourself, it's something that can take a long time, which I learned by myself. No one was calling my shots for the first, 3 seasons that I was hunting. I was the guy. I was the guy in charge out there. And I learned a lot of things, and I think that you and me, we've kind of been talking about it, and it was just such an interesting topic that I never would have thought to talk to somebody about. So
Yeah, I mean, right away when you asked, or you asked, what would I maybe want to talk about, and I said this, and I knew this, like I wanted to talk about this. I responded to your text like pretty quickly, thinking this was something that interested me, and me being a total newbie to this, I was like, when you said, why do you want to talk about that? To me, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, there's so many different factors that go into this decision. And it's just, like I was saying earlier, it's just become second nature to you, even though you said that, you started out for your first 3 seasons, you were the guy and you had to figure it out. And I mean, even probably the first time that you decided I'm going to pop up and shoot something, it was probably a natural thing to you. But like I said, I haven't had that experience yet. So
actually, the first bird I ever pulled up on, I bet you that thing was a sky mile high, and I don't even know if it heard my shot. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. This is a shotgun. Okay, I'm gonna get back down in the blind now and just sit here and wait for somebody else to shoot, and then I'll get my confidence back up again. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things that go into it. And I think starting out, number one, the most like baseline thing, the thing that you can, everything that we're going to talk about following this one thing is what you need to, be remembering, and all these other things affect that. And I think that's the effective range of your shotgun and your loads,
Absolutely.
So what do you shoot?
I have a Remington 870 pump.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's a blue collar gun right there.
Yeah. So, 325. Bought it at Shields, I think, when I was in college.
Oh, nice. So yeah, I think that, when it comes down to effective range, there's really, I guess 3 things that kind of, as far as your weapon goes, that kind of determine that. And I think that's, first, I think it's your gauge, because, the size of your shotgun, I think determines kind of your max effective range, because, bigger shells and whatnot. So, then it's probably your shot, what you're using. What kind of shells do you use, Scott?
I use the Winchester, I think Super X, the cheaper Winchester brand. If I'm going for steel hunt, I'll get 6 shot. If I'm going for big ducks, I'll get 4 shot. And then if it's a goose, I'll get 2.
I think when it comes to big ducks, actually, I would say that both of those shot selections are on what you'd call like the smaller size. I think there's 2 camps, and I think that somebody hunting big ducks is going to prefer 2s, 3s, maybe move to 4s, and there's a lot of camp that is with it sits in the 4 shot, and then I think a lot of people have a really hard time in teal season picking up 6 shot.
Really,
anybody I've ever hunted with, and I've shot 6 at teal, and it's as long as you have the right the setup for it, and you're really waiting for him to come in, it's gonna be a really, really effective shot. But I don't know. I don't see a lot of guys that I hunt with, at least, shooting 6s at teal.
That's good to know, because I mean, all those numbers, like I said, I don't know basically anything yet. That's just what the internet told me to do, So the internet knowledge is good, but I think it's also probably more beneficial to me to have, whatever. I'll definitely try 4 shot this year for teal season.
I think that might be too a function of like accuracy. Some people are, they put a lot of like steel downrange, or bismuth now. They put a lot of that downrange, and they're very comfortable with, they either want to smoke the bird, or they want to completely miss them. That's kind of the camp I fall in. But there was a situation where I thought six shot made perfect sense, and I was like I was in like a little finger of this pond because that was pretty much the only place that the wind was right. And I thought to myself, like, okay, I have like 10, 15-yard shots where these birds are actually presenting themselves. And I was really wishing that I would have had six shot. And then I started carrying some six shot in the blind bag, but maybe 5 or 6 just for certain one-off situations. But I always kept it in my mind. I said, hey, if that situation ever presents itself again, I know if it's like kind of they're not giving me a lot of presentation and they're coming in fast and close. I mean, yeah, that's what you want to go for. But I'm sure there's some people in the same camp that you are, but I generally shoot 2s and 4s that add everything all season long. So,
well, one extra benefit would be I don't have to have 3 different sizes of shot shells on hand anymore either.
There's that. So I think, when you talk about gauge and shot, those are your 2 primary weapon considerations. Obviously, another part of that is your choke. Some people go with modified, and it depends on what we're actually calling it. If it's a choke for modified for lead, or it doesn't say modified steel on it, then obviously with steel it's one shot tighter. So if you're shooting steel out of a mod choke it's a lead mod choke, it's going to act more like a full, where you can get some chokes that are actually specifically for steel and they're actually labeled correctly. But do you know what kind of choke are you using?
Modified. I would guess it's the lead modified, because I mean it's just the same one that came with the gun. I got, when I bought it, it had modified, improved, and full. I think modified was already in it, and I've always just left modified in, whether it's been for turkey or dove or whatever I'm going to shoot.
Yeah, I would. Then it's really with steel. It's really acting a lot more like a full choke.
So. Really, that's good to know. I need to probably try different on that then. That would be.
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends on your, we'll get into your kind of your hunting considerations. But yeah, I don't switch out my chokes a lot. I do have like a brand new Carlson's choke that I've been patterning with some of my last year ammo, but I might be switching up ammo this year. But I've been patterning it out of this Carlson's like extended range, and it's going to be different for me because I've been shooting the same gun choke tube kind of speed ever since I got that gun when I was 12. I don't think it took me forever to get the freaking the mod choke that I had out of it. So it really did. I was a little embarrassing. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for me the first shot. I'm going to take it out and we're going to hit bust some clays up, or I'm going to hopefully bust some clays up with that. But it patterns well. So if you're looking for kind of some aftermarket chokes, I'd check out Carlson's. They have a pretty good selection. So, and actually, I talked to the owner of that company on the podcast a couple episodes back, and that kind of leads into my last thing when it comes to your weapon considerations, which is like your accuracy. And so just, I guess, practicing and honestly patterning your shotgun. I don't know. Have you ever patterned your shotgun?
I have not.
Yeah. I mean, that might be like, I'd say that's like step one kind of, and you're a shop teacher, so you can set up some sort of bench and system to figure it out and really take yourself out of the equation if you wanted to. But a lot of guys just set it down and, pick an aim point and go after it. But
so now patterning, since I've never done it, just real quick, because that's not the topic we're on, but just since we're, kind of introed into it.
Yeah.
What exactly are you doing it not necessarily to change anything, just to have a visual of what actually
Yeah.
is
When I
pattern.
pattern my shotgun, what I do is, I set it up and I try to take myself as much out of the equation as I can. So like put it, if that's prone on a sandbag or on a bench or something like that with a target at about, 20 or 30 yards, you can pick which one. And I put a big black dot in the middle, and I put my bead right in the middle of that black dot, and I really concentrate on just trying to have it be all gun, less me, and do that a couple times with some pizza boxes or just you use the regular, big papers that you have at the range, and you kind of get a feel for where your shot's hitting for that choke / shot combo. And if you see that you're always shooting a little high, then you know that, okay, when I need to aim just a tad, below, I need to be able to see the duck when I'm shooting. If you're shooting low, you put the bead on over the top of it and then let it go. For the longest time, though, I've always been like a really instinctual shooter, and I haven't done that, but it is pretty interesting to see where you're. Another thing too that it really does is you can really get a feel for how a certain ammunition patterns at the end of your barrel with your choke, so you can really know, okay, hey, this thing's really good at 30 yards, but at 40 yards, I'm not getting I'm not getting a good ratio. I'm only getting like 4 or 5 or 15 pellets, or BBs in the inside the circle.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be helpful to know. I mean,
yeah. So there's really, I guess there's 2 functions for it. You can see where your gun.
So
yeah, I think after a while though, you miss enough and you'll figure it out. At least that's what happened to me.
I just started since I was going to be on a podcast with you. I decided I should probably listen to some podcasts. So I've shot a lot. I've since I started hunting, and anybody that's a hunter becomes kind of a gun nut just naturally, because you sort of have to be when you're hunting. So I know quite a bit about guns, and although apparently not as much as I thought. Do you think patterning is sort of a newer thing that people are doing, or has that been kind of everybody's always been doing it?
Well, if you want to put me on the spot, I remember my grandpa talking about patterning when I was a little kid. Now I think maybe back in the day, they didn't do a whole bunch of that. Just because, of course, you're going to make me a liar, and we're going to get tons of comments on how wrong I am. So that's why you're the biggest jerk I know. But I would venture to guess they didn't do a whole heck of a lot of that back then, because they were shooting and they were, trying to make it count and kill it. But I think people back then too relied a little bit more on their weapons and kind of knew them a little bit better than maybe we do. But now we know all these ballistic factors and all the stuff for predicted accurate fire, and we get a little caught up in the weeds in some of this stuff. But
yeah, I kind of wondered that, just because in other sports, basketball, baseball, football, everything is so analytical now, and patterning, knowing now what it is, makes so much sense that I wouldn't be surprised if it was something that people have done. But I like I said, with starting to listen to more podcasts, it just seems like I've heard so much about it in such a tight amount of time. It just made me wonder if it became like a big thing recently. But no, absolutely makes sense.
I'll say this. The reason you've probably been hearing about it a lot in social media and online. So there's this thing that's happening in the waterfowl world right now with Boss shot shells, and with the new ammo that just came out, Migra, that people are just absolutely consumed with ammo. And anytime somebody comes onto the market and brings something that adds a lot of value or perceived value, or whatever it is, and says they're going to revolutionize the market, and you have a lot of people saying, yeah, this stuff, it's a game changer. You're going to get a lot of buzz about it, and then people are going to start, getting excited about that, and they're going to start getting on the wagon, and they're going to start really believing in the product and using the product, and seeing the difference, and then they're going to start wondering about that. It's just like with I think there's a lot of paths people go down from waterfowl. So waterfowl being the main road, and I think people take a lot of side roads. Dog training, photography, and then like guns, being super into all the finest details of guns. And I think that's a really cool part about the sport, that it gives you something to think about, look forward to. And, I've never been a like big sports guy. And so it's like kind of one of those things where people just really get into certain aspects of it, and it allows for that. The sport does, because there's, something that you take for granted for a lot, has tons of science and a whole industry behind it. That kind of answer your question?
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah. So I think that we beat the hell out of the effective range and the baseline. And we should probably start moving through some of these other things.
If you want to.
Say again.
If you want to.
Yeah, I mean, that would be...
we didn't talk about 410s.
We didn't talk about 410s. Probably because I haven't shot a 410 since I was like probably 10. But at any rate, yeah, and I think like getting back on track and talking about, we've talked about the factors: effective range. We said, hey, your weapon, obviously that builds your effective range. I think the second, another factor that kind of brings into it is actually what you're shooting at. What have you had fly in front of your face?
Hell of a lot of doves.
Yeah. Okay. So doves, right? They, how they react,
Oh, yeah.
They're quick, they're speedy. And that's very similar to, people think teal are the fastest duck, when actually they're really the slowest duck. It's a lot like flight physics, where big ducks are actually faster. They can cover a lot more distance, a lot more ground or air, than teal can, but it's the perceived speed of teal, because they can dip, dodge, duck, and dive and dodge.
Classic, right?
Thank you. And so we think that they're the faster duck, but that's the thing about teal, is they'll come in low, they'll come in hot. Have you had teal buzz you yet?
I'm sorry, what was that? I was opening a beer.
Oh, that's important. Have you had any teal buzz you yet?
Yes.
Yeah. So that how they kind of, they fly right on in, and they rip over your head, and that can be a very difficult shot, because a lot of waterfowl hunters, they get excited about it the season prior, and they have somebody out there with them, and then they get all their gear, and then they're ready for teal season, which is true. They're very amped for it. They're prepared for it, like mentally, but they're not equipped, I guess, with some of the right, tools or like experience to really go out and have a good, successful teal season. And even me, every single year, I guarantee you, the first teal that bombs right past me, I'll shoot at it and I'll miss. I swear I will. You can put 5 on it, just because you kind of got to get back into the game, especially if you're not doing a lot of dove hunting beforehand or anything like that. So yeah, the first teal that buzzes past you is gonna make you feel like a chump. I feel like, especially if you're a new hunter.
My first experience with a teal was that on that first duck hunt that I went on, and I kind of talked about the disorganization of it and the getting into the our makeshift blind lake. We had a green wing land in the spread while the spread was being set out.
Yeah.
And the thing that I found interesting about it was it came in, it whizzed right by us, came in, sat down on the duck. It sat for 10, 15 seconds, and then it got up and it was gone. The guy that I was there with that, I'd invited us along, kind of was in charge of this particular trip. Said, why didn't you guys shoot it? And like I said, the duck was in the spread as he was still setting up the spread, so apparently he wanted us to take a shot at him. It was.
Oh, was it after shooting light?
It was. That's what I mean. We were setting up so late, got off so late.
Maybe he was just setting up for the mallards. I don't know. But yeah, I think that leads into like another question that you had later down the line. But yeah. So the difference between teal and big ducks, I definitely can appreciate when big duck season rolls around. I've been shooting at teal for a couple weeks, and I get a little bit of more cupping action straight in my face instead of them just cutting across wind. And I think one consideration to remember is you might set up your spread correctly with the wind, with the wind at your back so that the birds are landing in your face. But those teal, they'll cut across it and they'll bank super hard in to try to like turn it in there on a dime. And that can be kind of a tricky shot calling situation in itself. And really you're shooting at birds going left and right instead of maybe in front of you, or, hell, if it's a slow wind day, I feel like if it's not a wind above 8 miles an hour, it doesn't really matter that much for teal or small ducks. They'll land whichever way. They'll come around and they'll bank in however they want. So yeah, that's kind of one consideration to, let those teal, let them land. They will decoy. They'll land. And then hit them as they're hitting the water, or, hit the last ones as they're, the first ones touch down, hit the last ones, and then hit the ones that are flushing from your first shot on your second and third shot. So
that's pretty good shooting.
Well, you probably get 2 out of there.
3 shells, 3 teal. That'd be a heck of a start.
I've shot 2 teal with 1 shell before. But anyways, yeah. So obviously it's different calling your shots for teal versus big ducks versus Canada geese. It's all different, and I think that really when it comes down to it, teal, you're going to have to be a little quicker on the draw, or you can just wait them out. If they look like they're going to put feet down, let them put feet down, and then hit the ones in the back and let the ones flush. Big ducks, I like to take the shots on the big ducks right as they're just right over the water, like they're about to touch down, and then you hit them. And then for geese, you never know with the geese. They can look like they're gonna. They'll present. They'll let you know when they're gonna land. They'll really start. The RPMs will go up on those wings, and the feet will start stretching out because they're a bit bigger, and they got to put the landing gear down, and they really got to make some effort. And that's really where you make your money, by not hitting that bird that's really touching down. Is if it's a group of 4 or 5, hit the one that's just coming in first, put him down, and then as that other goose starts taking off, go ahead and then you start picking them off. But yeah, what other questions you got?
Let's see here. In different blind situations, however you're concealed, I mean, you've got so many different options for concealment, and I would think just body positioning and getting the gun up is going to be different in each of those. So making a decision to take them from different positions.
Yeah, this kind of leads me into another thing as well. I hunt out of, or in the last couple seasons, I hunted out of layouts a lot, and I'm very quick at getting out of my layout because I kind of have had a lot of practice, and I take a lot of newer guys out, and my dad, and they're not nearly as quick. So if you're with a group of guys, and you're pretty quick, or you kind of know the experience level, you want to say, you want to give the shot before you pop up if you're quicker than the rest. And usually if someone's quicker than you on getting out of the layout, they're probably the ones calling the shot. I've done it a lot of times where I'm calling the shot as I'm popping out, and I got a good little jump on the other guys, and that kind of creates, me shooting, even having my first 2 shots off before they even get their first shot off, and nobody wants that. You don't want to be that guy. So coming out of A-frames, especially, if you're the guy calling the shot, you need to, vocalize that as you're ready. You're say, okay, this is it. Say, take them, and then everybody can kind of pop out at the same time, instead of you having the drop on them. And that goes with most everything, honestly. And with layouts, you want to call that shot just a tiny bit early, because it takes that extra throwing your doors open. The other consideration of that is that time that you do throw your doors open, that's just 1 extra second that those birds have to, put a little bit of distance between you and them. So as far as layouts, that's kind of what I would advise. A-frames, I think, are a little easier, because everybody's sitting, and it's really easy to pop up and shoot and get on your target pretty quick. And you're going to be hunting a lot from a boat this year, or are you going to be using the boat to get where you're going?
It's just going to depend. Probably situational. I mean, there's one lake that I go to that's cattails all around, and I'll definitely be able to sneak into spots in there and use it. And then another lake that I'll probably go to quite a bit. It's all kind of beachy. So, I mean, that'll be parking the boat and then walking back over to a spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Shooting out of boats, it really just depends if, what kind of blinds. You built your own scissor blind, right?
It's scissor-esque, I would say. It's, I guess, from what I saw on the internet, more technically a dugout style blind, kind of. That's what I've sort of modeled it after. And then it's got a swing arm on the top that I've got to pull back.
Oh, so you do have some overhead cover.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. For anybody that's not tracking, Scotty, what do you do for a living?
I'm a shop teacher.
Have you utilized any of the shop equipment to build your blind?
For the blind, I really didn't need to, no. I mean, it's all pipe that I would just cut and drilled through, and then, bolted through that to put that all together. And then my wife's going to do all the sewing to make the base layer of cover for it.
Damn. That's a pretty good situation you got there, Scotty.
Yeah.
Your wife's sewing your blind for you?
Yeah, she's a useful lady.
Yeah, my wife would. You know her. You know what she would say about that.
Yeah, she would not want to be a party to that.
No. Man. But then kind of like one of my last considerations, I would say, that kind of you need to consider when you're calling your shot or when you're going to pop up and shoot is weather. So this plays a little bit into more how the birds are presenting themselves with the wind. If you have a really strong wind that's at your back, those birds are going to come in really slow, but they're going to be able to get out really fast. So with that, I would say, wait just a little bit longer. Hit those back birds with a really strong wind, hit the back birds, and you know that you're going to have to switch off to those front birds pretty quick, because, if you got a 20-mile-an-hour wind at your back, that bird can get out of there in a hurry. And so I think just being a little bit more patient with it, let them get a little closer so that you can, have them in your effective kill zone for a longer amount of time is something that you definitely want to have working for you. Yeah. Well, what else you got?
I want to go back one when you were talking about layout blinds and you being the shooter going with newer guys, calling the shot when you're already you're going to have the much better time to get out and take that first shot. If it's a real great day, birds are coming in, not stopping, do you think it would be more beneficial to, like, if you're in that situation, you know, I guess for lack of a better way to describe it, just kind of step up and be that guy that knocks them all down, and you get your 6, and then you can just kind of lay back and call the shots for the other guys after that? Or do you think it's still better to, even right from the start, give other guys the shot?
I have way more fun when everybody is having a good time throughout. So I don't like, if I'm taking new guys out, I might not shoot the first time, or I'll bat cleanup. Right. Because I want them to. My favorite thing is having a good group of birds come in. We pop up, I take them, and I pop up out of there, and I have my phone out and just watch them whiff, and have them talk about, I can't believe that there was so many birds in there. I don't even know if I was aiming at birds. That's always a really fun like experience for me, and be like, yeah, see that, because you can't learn that lesson. You can't learn that lesson by someone telling you, like, pick out one specific bird. Okay, thanks, man. Like, when I got 5 ducks in my face, you can never simulate that or talk somebody through that. You just can't. They got to experience it for themselves. And it's always really fun to kind of get that on video and, show them later and have them. That's honestly a conversation that they'll always talk about, like most people are like, oh yeah, the first birds that came in my face. And so I like shooting with, I like to just hunt as long as I can. I don't like burning them up and then having my limit before everybody else. And, I like to just kind of take it nice and steady, especially if you got birds coming in and you don't feel like you have to get greedy with it. It's a good flight day and things are going to happen all morning. Why not, kind of spread the morning out. It's I don't know, for me, I would be happier to have 4 birds for everybody than have 6 birds for myself. Just kind of how I feel.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people that aren't, a total jerk would feel that way. I know you think that of me, but I would rather, spread the wealth around a little bit.
Sure, man.
Next thing I want to know. So this kind of goes back to a thought that I had when I was first getting into duck hunting, and which I'm still in that phase. I don't think that I have any sort of knowledge at all. But at this point, just from the 3 years of thinking about duck hunting, watching the videos on duck hunting, paying attention to the ducks that are around me when I have a chance to, I now feel pretty good about identifying a duck at, 10, 15 yards in most cases. Obviously, with some ducks, hens especially, and then darker colored ducks. My thought was when I start duck hunting, what I'm gonna do is, if a duck comes in, I'm just gonna let it land, use that time to kind of identify it, and then see if it's something that I would pull the trigger on. Just because with the different rules of Nebraska right now, I think is back to 1 pintail, 5 mallards, and just with those rules, making sure I don't go over on something that I shouldn't. So other than just that scenario, are there other times where you would just let birds land in the spread just for any reason?
To talk to your first point, and I'll answer your second point. To talk to your first point, I coach that, like, look at your most restrictive limit and just shoot that bird. Like, just shoot one bird. If it's 1 pintail, I think it's 2 pintails this year though, Scotty.
Is it back up?
I think so.
2.5, I think.
So if you know that you can only shoot 1 pintail and you can't identify birds on the wing, you only get to shoot 1 duck out of that group. And then once you have it in your hand, you kind of saw what it looked like and you're like, oh, okay. And now I know what a pintail in flight looks like. Now that I have a pintail in my hand. And then you're like, oh crap, I don't know how to identify any other birds, right? Right. So if you're not 100% confident, you say, I have my 1 pintail. I can't shoot any more pintails. If you're not confident that you can't identify between a pintail and whatever else is landing, you're done. You're done for the day. Pack it up, maybe watch some birds come in and like, oh, hey, that's a teal. I know what teal look like. You can shoot teal. You know what I mean? But if you got big ducks coming in, you can't identify the difference between a pintail and whatever it is, you're done if you have that bag limit already.
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah. To your second point, which was talking about. Say again.
Sorry, I think the nice thing about that is, a mallard drake. I would think for most people that spend some time looking at ducks, that's something that is so recognizable that at least when you can shoot 5 of those, that kind of helps with that situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, orange, white, brown, green. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty easy. So, but talking to your second point about letting birds land, I'm sure if there is I'm sure there's probably some rule about hey, can't hunt over live birds, and that we know that that's true. You can't have live decoys. That's a federal rule. But I mean, you just let birds land and swim around. I mean, I've let coots swim through my decoys and seen birds come in on those. But is that hunting over a live decoy? I don't know. Wasn't my intent. I wasn't violating the intent of the law. I might have been violating the letter of the law. Who knows? I don't know. That's a pretty gray area. But letting birds land, yeah, I'll let, if one surprises me, I'll let it land. And if it's going to hang out for a while, I'll keep it there, keep a bird on the pond and bring some more birds in. And, if I know that if he takes off and it's something I want to shoot, I'll pop him as he takes off. Or if it's, maybe I'm not targeting that species or something that day or whatever it is. I'll let them fly, but I'll keep birds on the pond if I know that I've got another good group of birds coming in right afterwards. And, I don't know, as they say, a bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. Right. And so a bird in the decoy is good until it's no longer a bird in the decoy. So
I have had, that was, my most successful decoying has been getting coots into my spread. And I mean, it happened on one hunt where I was at this lake where it's, surrounded by weeds and cattails and stuff. So it was hard to tell. It, I could hear something just a little flashing, and I kind of peered through and I was, oh, there's ducks. And then I was a little closer and I'm like, oh, they're coots. But I mean, they stayed and hung out for, I would say 20 minutes in the decoys, which I thought was weird. You wouldn't figure out that your friends are plastic in 20 minutes.
Well, nobody accused coots of being the smartest birds or the most chased birds too. I think coots get a little brazen because some people don't shoot them at all because they don't like the taste of them. But apparently you can eat coot. Apparently it's pretty good if you cook it right. I might test that theory out. I might test it out this year. I've seen some videos, heard some talk, read an article or two. Might try it out.
Those might be the same people eating carp.
Oh yeah, that's true. You've never had carp that you liked?
I've never had carp, and I don't plan to.
Oh, well, I think Coach Witt made carp for me once, like smoked carp or something.
That is unfortunate that he thought that little of you.
See, this is what I was talking about.
I hope for a lovely dinner of carp.
This is your first and your last.
We will
episode.
Also have a nice dandelion salad with dirt dressing.
Shut up. All right. What else you got, man?
Let's see here. Birds on the spread. We talked about that. Oh, when you have calling the shot when you have a single coming in, are you at all thinking about I'm gonna get this one, or is it a single's coming in? You want to look down the line. Let's say it's coming in, from the right side of your group. You think you want that guy on the right end of the line to be taking the shot?
Okay, yeah. So for me, the way I kind of set it up, if I'm with new guys, I'm usually in the middle, and I've got 1 or 2 guys on either side. And I tell them, hey, if it's coming in from the right, and it's if it passes your face and it's not a foot or 2 above the water, or it looks like it's gonna to land when I call the shot, if it crosses me, it's theirs. If it crosses your face, or normally. If it's really new guys, everybody gets everybody gets a shot on it, especially if we're really tight. But if we're kind of spread out, we set up. You got to set up your shooting lanes, so that everybody kind of knows where they're at. But on a single, I mean, you know how it goes. Single comes in, and you say take them, and it's clearly in the guy on your left, his shooting lane, and there's going to be there's probably two shooters on that bird. One's batting cleanup or whatever it is. But yeah, I would say on a single, kind of look down the line, and if somebody hasn't been, if that's the way you guys want to cut it up, say, hey, you ain't got a bird yet, Scotty. You got this single, that's kind of how I do it. Yeah. Put the pressure on that one guy. And then obviously everybody else is probably ready to bat clean up for you. I think you only get one shot at it before the other boys get to go after it. You know what I mean?
No, you got to give them one.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right, next question.
Let's go with I want to wait on that one, I guess, a little bit longer. Any adverse kind of weather or light conditions where you're going to wait longer than, or I don't want to say wait longer than what legal shooting light is, because obviously if it's not light enough for you to take a shot, you're not going to be taking shots. I mean,
yeah,
good thing to do. Anything other than wind in the weather that's going to affect, like maybe it's just as simple as like you're going to let them come into 10 yards instead of 20 yards before you're calling that shot.
So I haven't done this intentionally, but if you've ever hunted in a fog, you can hear them. Maybe you see them if you can see them outside of the fog, but it's just a silhouette, and you can see the silhouette coming in, and you might see a silhouette in the fog at 30 yards and know, yeah, I can shoot that duck. But really, like, he can't see. He doesn't have a good bead on you, and honestly, you don't have a great bead on him either. And so let him close the distance. And I think hunting in a fog it sucks. If you're where they want to be, it's not too shabby. And if you're decent at calling, at least, it's not too shabby. And I have a lot of fun hunting in the fog. Especially if I'm not running traffic. I wouldn't in the fog, probably not running traffic. Another thing too is like a good snow. One time me and my buddy Dave and Esau and old Billy, we were out on this big lake in New Mexico, and it was snowing, Scott. I mean, I'm telling you, it was like coming down, and kind of similar to the fog thing, where they can see the decoys pretty well. They can see the spinners pretty well. And we can definitely tell their mallards coming in. But that snow kind of gave us just that extra, like 5 yards. I feel like that they were landing at the edge of the boat. Like we'd shoot them and they'd be like, you could reach out from the boat and pick them up. It was a pretty slick deal. Rain, I feel like, rain, I always kind of like hunting in a little light rain, as long as it's not uncomfortable, obviously. But yeah, rain kind of does the similar things. Obviously, it makes them harder to get their attention. But if you're where they kind of know they want to be and where they're heading, it can be definitely advantageous to you because they're coming in, and if you don't, they don't have as good a beat on you, and just kind of tightens everything up, makes it a little bit of a tighter, like a knife fight almost. So
the next one I got for you here is any situations. I see this a lot in the videos that I've watched where it's a good day, birds are coming in, and you go out to grab a bird. You've left the blind. There's a couple guys in the blind. You've left to go retrieve a bird. You don't want to get shot, and they're going to be taking a shot at an incoming bird. What kind of hide? What's a kind of a good way to get hidden in a situation like that, or get out of the way of the gunfire at least?
That same crew that I just talked about, ruthless. If you were the guy going out to get birds, you knew that you were going to get shot over. Because I was like 300 yards out once, and I saw a group of birds come in, and I went, huh. I saw the birds start ascending, and then I heard the pops of the shots, counted about 10 seconds, turned around, and sure enough, the rain started happening and BB started falling on me. But yeah, I call it the old marsh squat. And I think this is actually where the term, if something's about to hit you in the head, somebody's going to yell, duck, right? You need to duck. You need to duck down. I think what that came from is back in the day, you got a group of hunters out and some ducks are coming in, and a old homeboy's out there in the middle trying to retrieve a duck or do something. He's out in the spread and someone goes, duck. And then he goes down, he squats down. I call it the old marsh squat. And I don't know why. And after a while, I think you'll see experienced duck hunters that their buddies will be like, get down. And they just keep walking back towards the blind. They're like, shut up, man. Cause I don't know how many times I'm sitting out there in the spread. Like, what are you going to do? What's going to happen? You know what I mean? On the same token too, I've had 2 gadwalls, just about, linebacker me, that, I was out there picking up ducks and, just sure enough, like 2 gadwall just out of the heavens, just bombed right in. And of course, everybody's yelling at me after the fact, like, dude, if you would have just hurried up. Like, that's the other thing too. If you're out to get birds, you're out to get birds. Go get the birds. No matter what anybody says, come straight back to the blind. Don't hide. You're just going to spend more time out there pushing more birds away. Like, unless you're on the edge of a bank and you can get behind a bush or something like that, or hide in the trees, if you're out in the water, just get back in. That's my piece of advice.
That's good advice. I mean, I think when you're in that situation, it's kind of a weird situation because it's like, on the one hand, I'm the guy going to get the duck, but at the other time, you're thinking about the other guys. You're like, I don't want to, mess up any shots for them.
But you're already messing up their shots. Like, those birds are going to come in, hit 15, 20 yards, and they're going to, there's an idiot out there picking up a duck. Do
you have you ever run into a situation where you have a hard time deciding now is the time I've got to go get that duck, or I need to let that sit for a little bit while these ducks?
When the action's like hot and heavy, and you got 4 or 5 birds out in the water, and you're saying, okay, hey, you shot the one on the left over there. That what is it? What was that? A gadwall? Okay, what was that? Widgeon? Okay, what was that? Oh, dude, I don't know. Oh, okay. You got 5 birds down, and it's time to probably collect some birds. But you still have birds circling up top. It's kind of, that parable, like, okay, do I want to leave X amount? How many birds do I want to leave down there? And what if dude on the left, what if he shot 2 pintails already? And you don't have that number because he's not as good about IDing ducks, and you're not going to ID everybody's duck for him. And so there's kind of a point, I think, when it hits a bird, a man on the water, it's time to go get those. Plus, you never know how those birds are going to react to belly up birds. They might not give them any attention. They might flare off of them. That don't look natural. No one wants to land, you don't want to run into a room with a dead body in it. Like, I don't think ducks do either. It's more about 2. Okay, you've got 5 ducks on the water and more action's coming in. What's the water doing? Are those birds just sitting there? Is the wind pushing them away? Is the wind pushing them towards you? The wind's pushing them towards you. Heck, it's doing the retrieving for you. Maybe wait a little bit. If the wind's pushing them out, go grab them. If the wind is going to push them to the other bank, that's fine. You know what I mean? I've had that similar situation a lot with a small pond that we hunted a lot, and the wind would retrieve them for us because it would push them to the other bank, and we'd keep track, and we could use the binoculars and say, okay, yeah, that for sure, that's a widgeon, that's a ringneck, that's a mallard, gadwall. and kind of doing it in that way and kind of keep track. But if it's going towards any vegetation or if it's a crippled, just go get it. Go get them. I think any more than a bird, a man, on the water, you're probably getting a little greedy.
Right. And then cripple, obviously, that was one I kind of knew. You got a cripple out there.
Oh,
You got to go get that duck.
yep. Go get that duck.
Want him out there?
Nope. Nope. Yeah, I think having a crippled duck that's lost because you were trying to shoot another duck is like the ultimate, that's not very sportsmanlike.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last question I've got for you on this topic before we get to the real good stuff here, the serious stuff we're going to talk about here at the end. You have a hard time giving up on a duck that you've missed. When is it? Obviously after 3 shots, but maybe you're real quick with the reload. You're going to get a 4th and a 5th shot in. Ever happen?
Yeah. So I've shot at a duck 6 times. I won't lie.
Single duck. The same duck?
Yeah. So it came in over my shoulder, and it was on the Rio Grande. And, so it came in over my shoulder, peeled back around, and I hit it because I thought it was coming in. Well, I winged it, right? And then it started taking off. So I shot it again, probably. It was probably not the most ethical shot, but I already knew that I had winged it. So it was kind of all or nothing at that point. So probably a 40-yard shot, hit it again. And then desperation shot, popped it one more time, put the bead underneath of it so it'd fly into the shot, hopefully. And I saw it kind of sail. I was like, oh, dang, that bird's 150 yards away. So I went, stalked it, and took a 90-degree parallel into the river. And sure enough, it flushed up again. Boom, boom. And then finally, the 3rd shot had to have been 45, 50 yards, and it went down. Finally, lucky shot. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know if I was just amped up or it was just kind of, I was after the last 4 or 5 shots. That's all desperation shots. I'd already winged it. And so I really wanted to get it. And so it was everything I could do to put that bird down,
And this was on the Rio, you said. So this is, I assume this is going down the riverbank and you're not going, 30 yards into Mexico to try and get this duck, right?
That's true. Yeah, it was more, it came over my shoulder, presented itself, a shot, and then boom, boom, as it's flying down the river away from me, it goes down, it's sailing. And then so I get out and I run, 100, 150 yards down or whatever it was. And then cut 90 degrees back in towards the bank. Bam, bam, bam. As it's flushing, and it landed on the levee floor as it was flushing towards America. So, yeah, if it would have gone the other way, different story, obviously, because it would have wound up in Mexico.
What a patriot!
Yeah. What it wanted to, it wanted to die in America, apparently.
Well, forgive him for starting out in Canada.
Yeah. What else you got, man?
That's pretty much it for questions on that. You want to get into the Recovering America's Wildlife Act?
Yeah, so if you're done listening to me and Scotty talk about neophyte duck hunting tactics, we're going to just talk a little bit about one thing, a little conservation. And I think, Scotty, are you taking the lead, or what do you think?
Yeah, this might be over your head.
Oh, wow. That sucks to hear.
This is some pretty important law, heavy on the law side of things. Actually, it's really not. I think you could handle it, but I'll go ahead.
Okay. Let's try it.
I don't want you to come in and take all my...
You are a teacher, so...
That's true. Not anything to do with this stuff, but that's okay. Yeah. So, Recovering America's Wildlife Act, it's something that's been written, I think, for a while, but it's currently on the House floor. It's in the House of Representatives. Ryan Callahan has talked about it a little bit on his podcast, and if you're on Twitter and you follow him, he's tweeted quite a bit of stuff about it. It's a huge conservation bill. I would guess it's probably one of the largest conservation bills that we've seen in America since, like, Teddy Roosevelt was, creating forests and things like that. I mean, it's massive.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, conservation dollars going to state programs is like around, I want to say it's like around $65 million for the year. That's for all states, all through grants. What this bill is every state state program, like your state's game and parks program, has created a wildlife action plan where they identify different species of plants and animals that are in danger, not an endangered species, but they're having issues just with the habitat that they have. So this bill that was introduced proposes an annual amount of dollars earmarked for it at between 1.3 and 1.4 billion dollars. So that would be every year, just a huge, taking at times what they've been getting multiple times. So, and all of that money would be earmarked for things like, I should stop saying earmarked. They actually removed the word earmarked from bills, but recovery programs for those plants and animals, and then also opening access to new areas for people like us.
It has bipartisan support, right? But there's a lot of stuff going on in politics right now that is not a good look for conservation, due to, big business usually wins.
Right.
And when you look at where does this money come from? Where do the grants come from? People don't know how these things are funded, and a lot of people don't realize hunters are the backbone of conservation funding, but that there's a lot of NGO organizations out there that are out there securing funds left and right through these grants. But how do we actually action this thing? Because I think anybody listening that's a hunter or a conservationist is probably thinking that sounds like a pretty good deal.
I would hope.
Yeah, I would as well.
Adding access and then also preserving the things that we enjoy being out and seeing and experiencing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's not set in stone, the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. Right. But if this sounds good to you and you are pro wilderness / pro your children being able to enjoy more or the same amount of wild places and wild beings that you do, voice your support of the bill to your congressional district representative. And the more people that you can talk to at barbecues, dinner parties that you can convince of this, tell them, hey, next time you're, vote with a little bit of conservation at the forefront of your mind, because a lot of Americans they're ignorant to this, and it's only the hunters, and there's a lot of hunters that are ignorant to it. They don't understand that this is such a big, that it's on the chopping block. They just take it all for granted. So.
Right. Absolutely. And it's, I'll, in the Facebook group, I'll post some links to two different things. One is kind of a fact sheet that breaks down the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, what it is, where the money comes from, and where it goes. And then another thing I'll post is just a quick link to how you find the representative for your specific district. That way you want to send a call or an email and let them know that it's something you support. Like Ben said, it's something that has bipartisan support, so it's not anything that you need to feel like if you're, whatever party you affiliate yourself with, you're not stepping outside the bounds of that. It has bipartisan support, but it is something that, something like this comes up, it's a large amount of dollars, a big program. It's something that your representatives want to know that it's something that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Scotty, should that about wrap things up?
I believe it does.
All right, guys. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend. If you thought Scotty was a big a jerk, as I said that he was going to be in the beginning, make sure you let us know that in the Facebook group. If you enjoyed hearing Scotty on here, let him know in the Facebook group. He asks a lot of questions, and he's always pretty helpful and handy when it comes to building stuff. And it's kind of I'm going to pat his back here for a second. But a lot of the questions that he does ask me, I wouldn't say I'm your digital mentor, but you have asked me quite a few questions. It makes me reevaluate how I think about some things sometimes. And definitely like have to ask him questions about how he built something or what he's doing for setting up, and hope to get you on a couple more birds this year, Scott.
That would be great. That's the plan.
All right, man. Well, I had a lot of fun, and hopefully anybody that's getting into hunting or even if you're an experienced hunter, hope you got something out of this. And yeah, it was really fun for me. So
thanks very much for having me on. Good time.
All right, Scotty. We'll catch you later.